All right, welcome back to the Branded Podcast, where we talk about business, leadership, really what it is to develop your brand as a person, business owner, entrepreneur, whatever area of life. Today we have a super special guest, a near and dear friend of mine, that I'm super excited that this is our first episode back, and we have none other than Branden Hudson. How are you doing?
Doing great, brother. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you don't know, Branden is not only an entrepreneur in Salisbury, he also is a podcast host, motivational speaker, MMA fighter and champion, and most importantly, he is a father to how many kids?
4 that I know of. Yeah.
How many do you not know of?
Who knows?
Awesome.
I'll leave that with the man upstairs. I'm
So,
kidding.
something I like to do every episode is give whoever shows up, since he's not paid to be here, I got you a little gift. So
Right.
Here you go.
I was wondering what was in the bag.
It's for you. You can open it if you want, but I know you got a young boy, so
Can we open it now? Or?
yeah,
All right.
if you want it. So I got
All right, Ben, you got me a
my favorite energy drink.
orange energy drink. Thanks. No, I'm kidding.
So I like always just getting something for people. So this is
Oh, that's cool.
Action Bible. So this is for you and your son.
Thank you, brother.
And this is what I got for my son, and we go through it and read it together. And I know your boy's about to be at that age
Yeah.
where, you guys are doing
It's
that.
like a comic book.
Yeah, dude,
I
it's
like
awesome, man.
That
Like
is cool.
my son absolutely loves like the stories in there. So we read it together.
That's so cool, man. That'll kind of refresh up on my stories and stuff like that.
That's
you
what
know what I
it
mean?
helped me too, because just doing a better job as a dad, showing your kids and.
Thank you.
And then this video, this is out of my DVD archive.
Really?
For those of you that don't know what DVDs are, it's these CDs that is basically YouTube, but on a disc. But tell me that isn't sick.
Yeah, it's the Hoist Gracie Ultimate Fighter. This is probably worth money.
It's OG.
Yeah, this is like the one. This is,
But I dug it up and I was like, this would be perfect to
Wow.
get for you. So hopefully you have a DVD player.
now all this is great, but what's up with this half-eaten big league chew? You know,
It's
I'm kidding. No, thank you so much, man. You didn't have to do any of that. I would have came on here for free.
Oh no, well you didn't know you were getting anything and you still were coming on.
Oh, I'm getting something. Here. You know.
You can crack that drink if you need to.
Thank you so much, buddy. I appreciate that.
I was trying to figure out how to put a black Dunkin' Donuts iced coffee in that bag without spilling it.
You know what? I don't drink them anymore.
Really?
Yeah, I cut caffeine out completely for about 3 months. I was having some bloat issues and some stomach issues, some like sleep issues and things like that. So actually, I didn't have any stomach issues. I just had like this bloat, and it didn't make sense with my lifestyle. So I cut caffeine completely out, which was probably one of the hardest things I've ever done. And I'm back on the wagon. You know what I mean? But what I've done was I realized I was probably taking roughly around 8 to 1,200 milligrams a day.
Yeah,
and you're supposed to take 2. So yep. So just for you. And crack this bad boy open.
That's green tea too.
Thank you.
The caffeine in that, so it's not too bad. So tell us a little bit about what your journey was like into starting SBY MMA. For those that don't know, I think it's actually this coming Monday will be 7 years or 8 years for you guys, correct?
No, actually it'll be, well, yes and no. We were over there.
It's yes. I looked it up on Maryland Tax Records.
Yeah. I formulated the LLC then. Yes. So it is 7 years. I always look at our grand opening, you know what I mean?
As the start date.
Yeah. And that was just when we got to deal with Pure Fitness. So it's a fun fact. November 10th, so it's right around the corner, will be the 11th year that I turned myself in to be incarcerated for, distribution of marijuana.
And how old were you when that happened?
11 years ago. Let's see, what am I, 44? I was 33. So, yep, so I was 33 years old. I got sentenced to a year, 5 years, all suspended but 1. And so, yeah, November 10th was actually, the day that I was sentenced and had to turn myself, or the day that I had to turn myself in for my sentencing. So that was kind of the day that I decided that, I was going to work on my personal development. I spiraled out of control a little bit while I was waiting for court. And, the blind don't know where the blind's going at times, especially when you're living in a world that you're not conducive to.
So what led up to that point? Right. Cause you're, at 33 years old, you're an adult, right? Like what happened from, 15 to 20 and then 20 to 30s?
So, man, I grew up as an angry youth. You know what I mean? So, and I think it had a lot of components to that. I was the oldest grandson, and we come from a era where it was all boys uncles. It was just all guys. And so we were rough, we were tough. And you had to go outside and get tough back in the 80s and 90s, right? I grew up really in the 90s. I was born in 81. So, add that with the fact that I was the oldest grandson, so I didn't have anybody having my back, and I had to kind of go out there and get tough. I had a wide variety of friends, but most of them, were black, and I was in those neighborhoods. So, I was constantly having to stick up for myself and fight. And then I just was in love with the urban hip hop lifestyle, right? You know what I mean? So, I think a lot of maybe the rap music had some impact on it, even though I think that the music back then was more talking about getting out of the struggle. It was still talking about the struggle. We had a loving family, but there was a lot of, dysfunction there within, my parents had suffered from trauma, and, it wasn't abuse, physical abuse, but sometimes you had to,
still emotional.
And you had to talk loud and scream to be heard in that household, right? And but my parents were great. I'm not trying to act like I had a great household, great loving family. It worked very hard, but we just, we didn't know how to communicate. And so I think a component of all that. And then we were, we were very, lower to middle class, right? So, I've got 3 younger brothers, and I'm starting to, go out there and hang out with the guys in the streets and stay out late and sneak out and do all the things that my parents forbidden. And just kind of snowballed into, my buddies were selling drugs, and, I started selling drugs. And, so in my high school, I started selling weed, and, at that point it was like, I'm the guy, right? Not only was I kind of charismatic and, popular, and I was on the football team, a homecoming king, all that stuff. Excuse me. But now I got the bud. I can show up to the party. You know what I mean? And
everybody wanted to hang out with
everybody wanted to be my friend, man. Yeah. And I had that extremist mindset. So whatever I was going to do, I was going to do it to the most. And you watch movies and stuff like that. So
which makes a good entrepreneur.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. So leading into my 20s, you know what I mean? My early 20s is because I was such a violent youth. I started catching assault charges really quickly as an adult, and they don't play with that. You know what I mean? They'll give you 30-some chances you go do and break it, steal stuff and do drug charges. Hopefully not now, but you look at some of these rap sheets in some of these states, you know what I mean? Yeah, they will. They'll give you a bunch of chances to do, whatever it is that you want and break the laws as many times you can, but they don't play with assault charges. They don't play with things like that. And
so for the assault, was it something like just opportunity, or was it you were going out looking for the?
No. I was always the guy to beat the bullies up. I fought men when I was a kid. I fought bullies when I was a kid, because I always had that stigma because I was the oldest. I was always getting beat up, and I was fearful that my brothers were going to get beat up, my cousins were going to beat up. So I had so many friends and so many different types of friend groups that, I didn't stand for the bullies, and I just couldn't walk away. I couldn't stand there, sit and watch people get, taken advantage of like that. So sometimes it worked out well, sometimes it didn't. But either way, I felt that pull. So when I was, in my teen adults, early 20s, either it was something on the streets that led me to that, or it was just something where, you had to. It's so stupid. I hate even saying it now, but you just couldn't be no punk. You couldn't be no bitch. You know what I mean? And that's kind of how you carried it. And I think it's a foolish way to be, but that's just how it was. So then as I was racking those assault charges up in my early 20s and a few gun charges and some really gangster crazy stuff that was just like snowballing and pointing me into the direction of prison, my extremist mind was like, well, that's all messing up my drug dealing, right? We can't let one criminal aspect and mess the other criminal aspect.
Got to protect it.
Yeah. So
protect the business.
Yeah. So I really fell back on that. And then I really took the weed to, the marijuana to like the whole nother level. And, it was not your average like weed dealing like it started off. It was a very large amounts, a lot. It was out of control, and you had to follow a lot of those rules. And I'll put it like this: it was so much that that we knew other guys that were selling other harder drugs that were trying to get us into that, and they were really big time, and they ended up getting a lot of prison time later on in life. And we were just like, nah, we know those charges, and we just thought that we were different because it was weed and it was so acceptable. But drug dealing is drug dealing, and there's a lot of negative stuff that comes with that, and people don't realize, like, like all of the stuff that I did, I've got friends that I don't talk to because they owe me $100, right? And family members that don't speak to me, people that have been murdered and tortured and things like that because they didn't give up our phone numbers, and a lot of good stuff or a lot of bad stuff that happened that I can never kind of take back, all because of the byproduct of dealing drugs, right?
Yeah, and this is all going into like
30s.
Early 30.
Yep, 30. When I was 30, I was 223 pounds out of shape. I was living the hustler lifestyle. I had just bought a house, so I was, kind of like that guy that was just trying to like turn. I had so many good things going for me, but then I had, still that black cloud over my head. And I just started, I found a couple ways in the gym, and I just started working out with a guy who did MMA in his like home dojo, and I was like, look, dude, I just want to look like a fighter. You know what I mean? And, I just think that like there's a bigger call in there.
Now, was this before getting locked up or after?
Before.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were already starting to like train.
Yeah. Yep.
Get in the gym.
Yeah. I just wanted to lose weight. And all of a sudden I started beating up the guys at the gym, and, I started looking good and feeling better. And, man, I had to try it. You know what I mean? I always wanted to box when I was a kid, but like, I think either I was too chicken shit or my mom and dad were like, not for it. So I never did it. I played football, basketball, baseball. I just never did that. I can't even keep count of how many street fights I've been into and playground fights and all that stuff. So I was no stranger to that kind of world, but I mean, I just got some sort of internal, like really like satisfaction from combat sports and doing MMA. And this was back when, this was 15 years ago. So this was back before like it was really anything. Like it was really like not anything
People
around
didn't
here.
even know what jiu-jitsu was.
Not around here,
yeah,
no.
Not here.
And if they did, they thought it was karate, right? Yeah. So then, I started competing, and I was, honestly, Ben, I was living like 6 different lives, dude. I was a big time, drug dealer. I was, a husband, a father. I had a mistress, you know what I mean? Like most drug dealers do. I was the second in command at this really big popular body shop, real reputable body shop here in town, and then I was a local fighter. And I thought that was normal. I thought that was like how you're supposed to live. And, I had so many different versions of me, and just didn't understand what was going on. And then, I kind of slowed down as much as my ear to the streets were, as far as where I was at that, but I still had like a little kind of mini organization going on with that. But I was just kind of like, and then I lost my wife and we divorced. I ended up falling in love with my mistress and kind of started seeing more and more like better feeling. I know it wasn't the right way to go about it, but like in my mind, I was like, well, shit, if I could I love this girl, and this is a lot better than any relationship I've been into if I just be real, go all in, and working is starting to pay off, because I had to get a job and to buy the house, because all the drug money you couldn't buy the house with. So like and I know it sounds so horrible, like this is something that most people understand and know, but I didn't. I was just like, I thought I was just going to be a big time drug dealer. I was going to one day walk away from the game. And if that's anything that I could tell anybody who's got their impact on the youth, or knows somebody, or is that person, it never works that way. You never get to that magic number, and you never can walk away. It's always a bigger number. It's always a bigger blackjack table in Vegas. And there's always those, nobody talks about, the hits you take and the robberies and the, all the bad stuff that goes on to it. So, but if I could have had some OG or somebody that could help me and see that, maybe I would have made different choices, because it was just me and my homies, and we were just the blind leading the blind. So when I started seeing this, like, wow, this is a really good life. Now I got my affairs in order, as far as like being like a good husband or good dude, you know what I mean? Which is so embarrassing to say, but that's just my journey. And then all I had was that black cloud of drug dealing. So I got hit, and ended up, waiting to go to court during that time period from when I got arrested to go to court, I got fired. I started spiraling out of control, because I'm thinking like I'm just going to party really hard. A lot of my friends, quote unquote, turned their back on me. They thought I was telling on people and stuff like that. I ended up getting them locked up with the guy. My buddy, we were in the cell together. You know what I mean? So it's like we were looking at each other like, yeah, that sucks. Like later on, like we did time because they were actually watching him, not me. So anyway, all the stuff that everybody was talking about just, was not valid. And, but I'm spiraling out of control hearing these rumors, thinking like, my life's over. I couldn't get no money, you know what I mean? So I'm like just kind of in this weird space. And then when I got locked up, finally did my sentence, I was like, this is going to be when I'm going to start, turning it around. So I started reading the Bible that day. I started my
push-ups. This is in jail.
This is in jail. First day in the holding tank. I'm reading the Bible. I'm doing my push-ups, doing my sit-ups, and I started eating like as clean as I could, which was a very big challenge in there. And then I was on work release, and I still had that ego as a drug dealer because I was still kind of playing in between the lines. You
were hustling commissary, weren't you?
I was doing all kinds of things. I was playing in between the lines, and I still had some stuff going on out on the streets that, you know what I mean, that I shouldn't have. And finally that caught up with me too, not as far as like that. And then I got to sit on the block for 5 months, you know what I mean, and really think about my decisions. And that's kind of when I said, look, man, I'm just turning my back on this life. I'm going to let God lead, you know what I mean? I'm going to sit here and just do what I need to do. And my big idea was I'm a convicted felon. I'm not going to go to work for nobody. So I'm going to train fighters and be a personal trainer and figure it out as a 2-4-1 losing fighter with no accolades, no belts, no nothing. Right.
So you did before jail, you had a few amateur fights?
Yeah, I had 7 fights. Yep, I fought for Stellar Fights my entire career. I was the highest draw they've ever had each fight. Every fight, no one's outsold me.
And this was all before
social media, all before getting locked up. I'm handing over Brad like knots of money that smell like marijuana, and he's like, "Who is this guy? You don't even know me."
Prom king.
Yeah, yep, yeah. So 100%.
So okay, so you get locked up. Mm-hmm. You lose a couple fights, you get locked up, and then
I won some too.
Okay, sorry. you lost a ton of fights.
I lost all my losing career.
You won one by split decision.
DQ.
Yeah. So then you're in prison, mm-hmm. and you say, I'm gonna start training other people how to fight.
Yeah.
Even though I can't do it quite yet, or not. Maybe not where you're at now.
Yeah.
So then you get out of prison. What's the game plan?
So that's a great question. The guy I originally started with, Trevor Howard, right? He had Twin Impact Dojo. Great guy, man. Also awesome friend of mine from high school. I started with him originally, and he was teaching for, it was called Fit Physique. But then it turned over to Live Fit. Yep. So he was instructing in personal training out of there, and I'd seen him on work release one night, and he was like, "Look, man, I'm trying to get out." So when I worked at a nightclub at a bar, so I was able to see all my friends, and real big punishment. And I seen him one night, and he was like, "Hey, man, I'm about to get out of it. Look, I'll help you out. I'll get you right in there." And mind you, I did that, but I also had this shoe store that I opened up. I helped open up my Dead Stock, which my cousin, it was his idea, and it's a store, but he wanted to help me. We were going into it as partners. I had a whole bunch of shoes because that's what drug dealers do. They buy a whole bunch of Jordans and they don't wear them. So I had all this inventory, right? So I was like, all right, great idea. And I didn't know what I was doing at the time. So I was on work release half the time doing the nightclub and the other half starting my own business a block down. That's kind of what jammed me up and got me set back to the block. But I saw Trevor and he was like, look, man, I'm going to be out. I'll put a good word in there if you want to do this. And I was like, well, I guess so. I don't know what I'm going to do. I got this shoe store. It's working really good. Then I get, caught up with the jail because of, I shouldn't have been out of bounds like that. And now I'm put on the block and now everything changes. My fiance left me. My cousin doesn't need a partner anymore. You know what I mean? Like all this crap is just building on top of me and I don't even have a business. I don't have a plan. I don't have any money. You know what I mean? I'm like just freaking out over here. So, when I sat there, had my coming to Jesus moment, you know what I mean? And I just started writing stuff down and that was my plan. My plan was to go ahead and be a personal trainer for income and train fighters, to build my brand. And I thought of the name SBY MMA and Fitness in jail. And sure enough, when I came home, I went right to Buddy Chatham. I got to give him his credit for giving me a chance. And I went to Live Fit, and I said, hey man, this is what I want to do. And he's like, get a personal training license or certification. You know what I mean? You know what you're doing, so take an online course, get the insurance, and we'll come in. And at the time, that gym was in the red. That gym was really struggling.
Now, was he letting you come in for free, or was he helping fund you?
Yep. So he let me come in for free. So, which is an insane deal. You know what I mean? Not the best business decision, but he was in the red that I found out.
Yeah. So that could have been a value add if it worked.
Well, 100%, because I never had social media. So I just started a Facebook page. I figured, look, I ain't gonna talk about my Women Crush Wednesday or when I take a shit. I'm just gonna go here and talk about positivity and stuff that's relatable. And I just got hustling, man. I hustled my ass off. And I started this MMA conditioning class, which was like all the workouts that we did to get in conditioning. And, he just said, look, all I want the members to have memberships. You can keep all the personal training money, train what you want. I'll pay you, the fee for the classes 3 times a week, and let's go. And, man, I just went in and went all in, and, it was just a progression of how it built. But what happened is within less than 6 months, we took that gym in the red, got it in the green, because I got like 250 members that signed up to the gym.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I was rotating roughly around 18 to 24 clients a month. You know what I mean? Or a week, I should say. Yeah.
So how much money do you think like you had starting out?
Nothing. I was broke.
Okay.
I was so broke.
Such a big deal.
I was so broke. Listen to me. When I came home, I was in like $15,000 worth of debt, and I had roughly about $9,000 of overhead between my mortgage, between my car payment, all the things that I had that were going on. Dude, I was selling shoes. You know what I mean? There was still some money owed to me from the store. Dude, I was selling jewelry. I was selling all the shit. They don't tell you about this, but you buy all this shit as when you're in the, this frivolous things like cars and jewels and clothes and all that shit. That shit ain't worth nothing when you go to try to sell it. Yeah. But I needed money. So, you know what I mean? I was trying to figure it out. I went straight to social services. I got on food stamps because I had 3 daughters that live with me. You know what I mean? So like, I'm like, dude, I've not been home in 8 months. We don't have anything in my house. You know what I mean? And that's where I think like things like government assistance really do help out, because I needed it for a crutch. I didn't need it for a long-term thing. Right. Yeah. And I paid my taxes. I made a mistake and I needed a little leg up.
Yeah, but like, what would you say for like people, and we'll keep talking on the story, but for people that will use that as an excuse of like, well, I don't have, $1 million or 10,000 or 20,000 to start a business and, to do the thing, which, I mean, I think this is a perfect example of having less than nothing, right? Mm-hmm. It's like you're in debt, you don't have much cash to your name, you have to hustle, you're grinding, you're figuring it out. You're working deals with a guy who has a facility that might not be having the numbers. And, so what would you say to the person that might be trying to start a business and uses that as an excuse?
Yeah, well, that's exactly what it is. It's an excuse. There's a couple things to that. One, not only did I didn't have any money, I don't have any rich uncles. I didn't have any credit. I didn't have anything. Right. So, the first thing is put your back against the wall. That right there will change that mindset right there. The other thing that I did was, and my back was against the wall. The other thing that I did is I went to the gym all day, every day. I had nothing else to do.
Can't get in trouble that way.
Well, can't get in trouble, but also I'm becoming familiar, and I'm learning the business, and I'm staying in the space that I work at. People think that they're going to make 6 figures working 40 hours a week. That's just where do you do that, right? Now I understand like there's some business owners that have earned that, but in the beginning you've got to work, your butt off to be able to get to a point where you can even do that. So, the one thing is you're back against the wall. You need your back against the wall. You need to go from a place where it's got to happen, make or break, no excuses. Second thing is you got to show up every day. Every single day you have to show up, and you can't give up. You can't quit. There's no leaving early, right? Have your non-negotiables. Hey, I don't work Sundays. Hey, I get home early on Fridays. But you need to be at your business every single day, all day. I don't care what you're doing. I don't care if you're doing paperwork. I don't care if you're sitting there looking out the window. Obviously, you want to be more productive. You need to be at your business every single day. And the other thing is you need to get rid of those limited beliefs. Those limited beliefs are what's holding you back from thinking that you need this and need that and all that. There's never a right time.
Explain a limited belief for somebody that might not.
I don't have any money to start a business.
Yeah.
you then work.
I don't have time.
Then work. So back to your, in the beginning, so SBY MMA and Fitness has been around for almost 10 years, right? I sat there, I went to jail 2014 on November 10th. I got out July 4th, 2015 on Independence Day. I got my Independence back. Yep. Great day. And July 4th is always a big deal for me, right? And I was working by August, and I sat there and I was working my tail off, and we didn't formulate the LLC until today, 7 years ago, right? Or whatever date it was, Monday, yeah.
October 27th for those who care.
But that was
Not
when,
that we're counting.
but that was when I got to deal with Pure Fitness, right? So, you have to show up every single day and just figure it out. Like, the more you are at your business, working in your business and on your business and just learning your business, go to work. So what I did was I was like, hey, look, I'll train anybody for $150 a month, 3 hours, 3 sessions a week, $150 a month, right? Which is like insanely cheap even back then. But I needed money, and I needed people to talk about me, and I needed practice, and I needed all these reps in the beginning where, my overhead wasn't that big. I minimized a lot of my bills. My overhead wasn't crazy. And then the other side of it is I went 3 months without paying my mortgage. Right, my mortgage at the time was $1,300 a month, and I didn't have any money the first month. I didn't have any money the second month. I made $300 the first month, $650 the second month, and around $1,000 the third month.
And this is while you're at Live Fit.
This is in the beginning. This is the first 3 months, right? And this is while I'm at Live Fit. I'm looking up at God and my phone, like, God, I can literally make a phone call, fix these problems right now, right? I'm just kidding, God, just playing. We joke a lot, right? But I knew that and here's the other thing, right? I knew that I could do all that because here's the thing. I got caught with one connect, right? My whole main money-making machine was another connect that I had nothing, that nobody knew anything about. So when I came home from jail, all of my clientele, my peoples were ready for me to go. They expected me to go because that's what I've always done for 18 years. My connects were ready for me to go. So I knew that I could fix those problems and those pain points real easily with just a phone call, right? I also knew that if I did that, I would always do that. Every time I would get into a jam, I would find myself falling back to what was easy, what was comfortable, what I was used to, right? Instead of going all in on myself and trying to say, hey, I can do this no matter what. There's nothing stopping me from doing this. I had my kids, dude. You talk about a humbling, hurtful moment in my life. On that third month, I had my kids, my oldest daughters, because they were so blinded to what they were doing, sit there and tell me, hey, Dad, you need to go hustling again. This is hard. This is tough. I had my ex-wife who had tried to be a personal trainer say, man, it's really hard out here to be a personal trainer. And I'm like, bro, y'all don't know my hustle. Like, y'all don't know what I'm capable of doing.
So did that affect you at all? Because, a lot of times you see people that they'll get really excited about an idea and then they allow other people's comments to start, negativity, start pricking at that idea and start to bring that dark cloud over. Well, maybe I can't do this, and start sowing those seeds of, insecurity, doubt, and all that. How did you work through that?
I didn't work through it. You tell me I can't do it, and you just piss me off. Yeah, you tell me I can't do something, and because I've always been an underdog. I've always been the guy, whether it was by design or whether it was a mental thing that I always said to myself that, oh, you think I can't do this? Watch. They said I couldn't compete. They said I couldn't, they said I couldn't open a gym. They said I couldn't become a champion. They said, I'm not just a champion, I'm a Hall of Famer in that organization. Which, it's a local promotion. It's not that, but how many Hall of Famer friends do you know? You know what I mean? And I'm not trying to look at Branden, right? I didn't even go after that. It was just, when you tell me I can't do something or you doubt me, you really piss me off, right? Because I've always feel in my heart that I've been doubted all my life and I've been counted out all my life. And that might have been because of my own doing, right? Might have been because of my own limited beliefs. But either way, no, I didn't work through that at all. When they said that, I was like, okay, hold my beer. You know what I mean? Let's go. I'm going to show you guys what it is.
That's awesome. So, all right. So you're at Live Fit. You're there for a couple years.
Yep.
Building clientele. At what point did you see the next step, or what was that transition like when you realized hey, I can actually do this. This is going to be something that can work. What did that look like?
So I'm not one of those practical thinkers where if I have an idea, I'll weigh out all the things that could go wrong. But it just in a strategy wise, but I'm like, hey, I'm going to start the gym and be a millionaire.
It's going to work.
Yeah.
It's just going to happen.
It's the way I think. One. It's the way I think, dude. Yeah. It's the way I operate. Now that doesn't mean I'm without calculation. And it doesn't mean I just look at like, this is the only thing it's going to be at, because sometimes you do have to walk away. But to me, it was just always going to work. And then once I started gaining momentum, I just started proving that to be right. So then there was a turning point with Live Fit. The owner was starting to get, down on money problems, and there was some issues with the gym. I just won my first title, so my popularity was gaining. And, we needed to start figuring out something. And the facility there wasn't the perfect facility, or we needed to make some changes. And he offered to sell it to me. And I had a limited belief then. I didn't think I could buy it. And, he wanted a number that I didn't have a fraction of. But I was like, hey, man, let me figure it out. I'll go ahead and write a business plan. There's got to be a way, right? Started working on that, started coming to him with some ideas, saying, hey, man, I think that if you stuck with me for another 5 years or 3 years or some deal that we worked out, I could pay off the business to you. We could put you in a space where you can take care of your clients and you don't have to worry about anything. And then you can help me minimize my mistakes as a gym owner.
I love that. Like, just being creative.
100%.
The cards are dealt, figuring out, like, how do we make this work without... Like, I think too many people, they'll just throw in the towel on that, but just trying to be creative in business and like, hey, how can we get this deal done and make it work?
100%. So he was all in. He wanted to do it. It was exciting. I went another couple of months working on my plan. I was talking to the SBA, trying to get some funding, trying to get some ideas. And then he asked me again about it on a Thursday. I'm all excited. I'm telling some ideas, Mind you, at that time, because of all the troubles the gym was going through, I was like the guy keeping everybody's spirits up, all the trainers, there was so many trainers ready to leave them. So many people were like, they were out. So like I was really feeling good and hopeful about this. That was on a Thursday. Come Monday, he hung out. He said, hey, man, you're trying to start a gym. You're talking to my people. Get your shit, get out. And I'm like, bro, are you having a fucking bipolar? Am I allowed to cuss? Sorry. Excuse me. I'm like, are you having a bleep? Are you having a bipolar moment? Like, we literally talked about this entire plan. You're supposed to be here. And, it
sounds like it would have been a great exit strategy for him.
Perhaps, it was better than what happened to him, but I'm not trying to talk bad about anybody. Again, the guy gave me a chance.
Yeah. So let me ask you, so like at that time, like what were you doing as far as like customers coming in? You said you're like 150 for 3 hours or whatever. Like, and I know you're like just trying to figure, I got to pay this, pay that. Like,
at that point, I'm sorry to cut you off. No, at that point, I was charging $325, $350. Okay,
so you scaled up a little bit.
Yeah, this was almost 3 years, maybe 3 years later.
Yeah, which is a big takeaway because your value increased.
100%.
Now
Yeah, I was making six figures.
Okay.
Personal training.
That's awesome. What percentage of that were you like stacking aside to expand to the next level?
0. No, I was, that's interesting you said. Because I lived a drug dealer's life for 18 years, I never understood about budgeting. So, whoever says that drug dealing is the easy life doesn't understand the mechanics of the way it works, of the underworld, right? It's not easy. It's fast, okay? If I had a bill, I just paid it. And if I wanted money, I just went and made it, right? So it's a very fast-paced life. What I didn't understand was I didn't understand how to rob Peter to pay Paul. I didn't understand how to have a budget, right? So those bad habits, those bad money habits leaned into those early days of my career, because as much as I was getting money, I was spending it on trips, spending it on bar tabs. I was having fun, living a clean life, so to speak. And
thinking you're doing the right
thing. I'm doing the right thing, stacking a little bit, and I was still climbing my way out of the hole. I was still climbing my way out of that debt. That debt was coming. The bills were racking up. So I really didn't have much money at all, maybe a few $1,000s that I had stacked, but really nothing at all. And I mean, let's be honest, 6 figures is a good wage, but it's almost like minimum wage nowadays, especially now. So it wasn't really a whole lot. So, when he fired me, man, I was like, no money, down on my luck.
And he's got the accounts.
I took the walk of shame. You know what I mean? I was just like, bro, I went from high on my horse to having this plan, being the champ, having all these clients, making all this money, to now I have no source of income. And that was a feeling that I had felt a couple times in my life, where someone was in control of my destiny and my future and my pay. And I vowed that I'd never let that happen again. I did feel bad for myself, and, I was kicking the can. I came home. My wife let me, sulk on my wounds for about an hour. And then she's like, dude, you're Branden Hudson. Like, go figure it out. Like, dude, stop acting like this. This is not the guy I got with.
And I also think that's like a huge takeaway is like, if you are married, having that support system where your wife will kick you in the butt and be like, hey, go get after it.
Yeah, she didn't freak out. She didn't lay in my wounds. She said, dude,
Because sometimes we want that. Like, men won't say that, but sometimes, like, man, I want you to feel a little bad for it.
I know. Well, we want everybody to feel. We want to be the victim.
That's when you know you have a good wife when she's like, no, you're not going to feel bad for
She said, I ain't raising no punk bitch. Get your butt out there and go make some money, right? So,
we got this mortgage to pay for.
Yeah, she's like, well, no, she was at her own spot. She's my girlfriend then, but she really gave me like the kick in the butt to like, what are you doing, right? Get your mind together. So anyway, that's when I brokered the deal with the Taggart-Poors, Nick Taggart-Poor and Tony Taggart-Poor, and we went with Powerhouse to Pure Fitness, and that's where the LLC created. And then that was like, I was running my own business and being an entrepreneur.
Well, let's talk about that for a second. Sorry to cut you off, but so you were running the business, but you didn't have an LLC or any of that stuff. Just because, or didn't know about it, or just
I was just a 1099. Okay. So I was just I don't know what they call it, but
so Live Fit was 1099, like subcontracting.
Yeah, subcontractor. I just pay my taxes. You know what I mean? What I could and things like that. So
then once you went with Powerhouse, which is now Pure Fitness, correct, that's when you were like, all right, I need to get an LLC and start doing business things.
Yeah, because I always joke like I was the trailer park outside of the gated community, right? So Pure Fitness, they have 9 clubs. They're a multi-million-dollar fitness clubs, and they've been in business for top notch. Yeah. They've been in business for over 25 years. Here I come with discolored mats and unmatching bags, and it was time to get my stuff together. And I started the LLC, but all those years in business, and I do want to preface this, I don't regret anything that I did as far as like, where I was at. I would have loved to make different choices, and I would have loved to do things differently, but I can't say I have any regrets because it brought me to where I'm at today. But a lot of that stuff that I did in the streets really carried over in business. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't realize how much that prepped me and showed me. And I got to give, Matt Miller over at Ursula Miller's Body Shop a lot of credit, because I was under him for 7.5 years learning business from that aspect, which I didn't realize he was my mentor as well. So when I got to Pure Fitness and started that, then I really realized how much I didn't know. And I really realized how much I needed to grow, and even spent more time in my business working on trying to figure this thing out. And which is, we were there, we had a 3,000 square foot section upstairs, and
you were downstairs originally.
We were downstairs kind of like on hold.
Just until they finished everything.
Yeah, we were in where the POA is at now, Peninsula Orthopedics. And then while they were finishing that deal and finishing that, we were moved upstairs, and we had that little corner where you trained at. And then about 1.5 years later, roughly, post-COVID, right? We made it through COVID and didn't end up shutting down, which is remarkable. But about 1.5 years later, Nick was like, hey, we need to buy 20,000 square foot next door. I'm not going to do it unless you expand upstairs and get this go from 3,000 to 10,000 square foot. And I always wanted to go big, but I knew I wasn't ready. I was about 200 members away from doing that. Plus I had no clue to how to do it, no credit. Again, we're still, and I just finally got into the green, right? I started making a little bit of money and a little bit of profit, but we were kind of in a space where we were kind of walking all over each other and things like that. So, I was a series of events, man. I just took the plunge and leaped. And then that experiment, I say, was when I really learned what I don't know about business. Yeah. See, I'm a good hustler. I can close sales. I can market and bring people in. The challenge that I faced was managing and hiring and structure, right? Yeah. Back end stuff, knowing your numbers, all of these things in business that I never realized were a thing. You just look at accounts coming in, accounts receivable, accounts going out, right? Accounts payable. Most people do. A real successful business owner understands economics. They understand how much each client costs them. They understand, when to pull back on merchandise, when to double down, when to really, start pulling back on marketing, when to double down, which in my opinion, I don't think you ever pull back on marketing, but sometimes you have to. So these are things. And then I didn't realize how many people I needed, like on the business. I needed a front desk person. I needed a person to look at my money. I needed another person to look at my money. I needed a person to handle my market. I needed a person to handle sales. So all of these things I'm learning by proxy. I needed somebody to clean the gym. You know what I mean? I'm just like taking each L as I go. But again, I still stayed committed to being in my gym all the time. You know, no matter what, I was there. People would joke around the gym, like, man, you're always here. I'm like, yeah, buddy, I don't get paid if I'm not.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So what was that? What did the leap look like as far as like money, finances and all that to be able to pay from going from, you know, being upstairs to then expanding? Because, I mean, you did a big expansion.
Yeah.
I mean, like full octagon or boxing ring, bags, like the whole 9 yards, and nice stuff, like high quality gear and equipment. I mean, it's truly a phenomenal facility up there. What did that look like? Because I know that had to be stressful, right? Because hey, I believe this is going to work. I wasn't sure. What did your money look like before, and then investing into that, and how that tied together? So
I started understanding how money works, right? And I started understanding like business loans are important to establish business credit. You know what I mean? I understood that, look, you know, you allocate the funds so that you can afford it. So we got a loan for the fence, which is the perimeter, which contains the perimeter of the gym. You know, we got a loan for the bag rig and the bags, and loan for the, other ring in the cage and things like that. And I knew those were going to be things that were really going to be attractive to the eye, attractive to the people that come in. And that was going to kind of get me out of the trailer park, so to speak, and make me look like I was in the gated community, you know, or at least
I think it also makes like psychologically, it's like, I want to be on that side of the fence.
100%.
You know what I mean? Like you walk up and you're like, well, what's going on in there?
Absolutely.
Like, it looks fun.
Yeah. And, you know, when you go in there, it's like people don't, you know, they're not used to that with your traditional combat sports gym. But yeah, I mean, if you 3X the square footage, you 3X the rent, you know, then you look at how many, things you need. Like we have 45 classes a week. I have 12 coaches on staff. So each one of those classes, you know, my coaches get paid, you know what I mean? That's something that they didn't do a lot in other gyms. You know, you get a free membership, or, you know, Blue Belt gets the privilege to teach class. So I was like, we're going to pay our guy.
There's no retention with that.
Not at all.
They show up for a handful. There's no consistency if they're not.
100%, you know, and so we look and we hire our coaches. I needed a salesperson. For the longest time, I was doing it all. I was running a class. I was signing people up. I was taking care of the front desk in between classes and stuff. I was doing it all. And I just knew that was not a great quality of instruction when you got people coming in. Plus, I was carrying all the hats. I was teaching the conditioning class. I was personal training still. I was teaching jiu-jitsu, teaching kickboxing. I was training my fighters.
Trying to get married,
selling T-shirts, selling fights. I mean, hosting fights. Like it was a lot of hats, you know. And then I ended up working, you know, with the Maryland and Delaware group of EXP with Branden Brittingham's team at Rich Barr. So it's like it was so many irons in the fire, you know what I mean? Like I was like, okay, well, yeah, I can continue to do this, but I'm only going to be good at a lot of things, not great at anything. And that's when, you know, you just learn. So I would say, man, shoot, I started understanding how money worked and started utilizing, leveraging loans and things like that. And then I just started getting creative with how to get revenue streams, you know, like for instance, you know, our apparel, right? You know, we've done, well over $50,000 in top line revenue with selling gym shirts. Yeah. And think about that, right? You know, if you think about and you look around, like how many, whoever's listening to this, how many gym shirts do you see on a daily basis of your favorite gym, right? Think brands like Powerhouse and other brands like that were well known for a long time, Gold's Gym and big names like that. You saw a lot of them. But what I realized was, first of all, if I give you a Gildan shirt, which is like, there's nothing wrong with Gildan, but it doesn't necessarily fit the right way and it doesn't always, you know, last as longer, then you're probably not going to wear that shirt very often. Another mistake I made is I would go and get 100 shirts at a time and just let a whole 100 black shirts just sit, right? Well, that tied up a lot of money, and what that did was there was no flavors to it, and I had to wait to re-up. Sorry, that was old language. What I realized was, shoot, let's limit our releases and let's start switching them up. Let's start switching themes, switching colors, and giving people just enough where if they don't get it, they don't get it, right? Yeah. And I just kept doing that.
You're missing out.
Yeah, and I ended up having, you know, we ended up making profitable marketing, right? Because those shirts market, plus we're making profit off of it. We sell our own gis, we sell our own gloves, we sell all that stuff, and we really push that stuff, right? Well, you can buy it wherever you want, but you know, if you want to support small local, then we got it right here. Get that. Well, we're I think the last time I checked, we were top 20 in the country for Hayabusa. Hayabusa makes the motorcycles. They also make gears. We're top 20 in the entire company. We're top number 1 distributor in Maryland. That's going up against wholesalers and stuff like that.
Yeah,
but
that's huge.
You got to get creative with that stuff, right? You got to push that in your sales conversation. We do sponsorships where, we do scholarships. So we got sponsorships. These companies will give us money to market, and then we'll turn around and we'll sit here and pay for kids that, need a scholarship. They can't afford training, or we'll pay for gear, pay for traveling, things like that. So all of these avenues of income, we have one-on-one programs, where, they can do private sessions. We have conditioning class. We have different packages. We have a homeschooling program. We have all these little things that get creative. And then on top of that, we'll sell stickers. We'll sell anything, man. We'll sell honey. I got a honey, guy that brings me honey. And I think that's a part of the healthy lifestyle, because I love honey. So it only fits.
Yeah, and I think that's what part of business is too, right? It's like finding those other buckets that you're able to have flows of income coming from. So it sounds like you have like the core, I'm assuming, is like the membership.
Yep.
Then you have like T-shirt sponsorships, all those other things. And just curiosity, and you don't have to answer it if you don't want to. Like operationally, to just run a facility like that, what is somebody looking at roughly? You could give me a range too.
To run a facility like we have, you know what I mean? And again, we're in a different conversation, you know what I mean? If you've not seen it, we are leasing 10,000 square feet inside of a 75,000 square foot fitness club. If you think of like, Planet Fitness and what that looks like, that's, similar to what we have. We have a little bit better, but that's similar to what we have. So we have a 75,000 square foot box gym, they call it, that we would be considered more of a boutique studio, that we have 10,000 square feet in that. So with that, my expenses tend to be fixed, right? So I pay a little bit more, but I don't pay for the electric. I don't pay for a lot of the things that I normally would pay for, right? So that situation is a little bit different, you know what I mean? Along with, the way that we're set up and how big we are, we have a lot of different varieties of things that most gyms don't offer, right? We have morning classes, midday classes, evening classes. We have our members, if they're members, they have the ability to utilize the facility when no one's there, which is kind of uncommon in gyms. So our fighters are training constantly, and people can just kind of go out, and our members can check out and do their workouts. So it's a little bit different than your typical studio gym or some of the models that we're going to model after this. But, you're in roughly, you're well over 20 grand a month that, you have to spend to keep that machine going, to keep payroll up. It's a lot. And for the longest time, we were breaking even and not making any money, right? So I had to rely on, the Maryland and Delaware group, that income of which all came from this as well, and I could get into that story later. I had to rely on my personal training. I had to rely on doing seminars. I had to rely on, a lot of other avenues of money to be able to continue to function. But,
a lot of people will say, oh, well, he's made it.
Yeah.
He's got this gym. Yeah. And what they don't see is the investment that, like, you've taken the risk. Mm-hmm. You've gotten the loans, you've done the hustling to be where, the gym is, which I know is still going on and continuing and all that.
Well, that's what they think. They think because you got it that you're good, but I'm married to it. I'm married to that for, the next 10 years. Right. And then another thing that gym owners don't understand that I understand, and this is kind of where our model goes for future pacing, is, okay, guys, martial arts studios, martial art owners, gym owners, what's your exit strategy? How do you get out? Because, you're a business owner, so there's no retirement. So unless you've got something else going on, which I didn't, this is my full-time gig. This is what all my eggs are in. So how do I get out of this? Gym equipment's like restaurant equipment. So you buy it at top line dollar, but you can't sell it for, a fraction of that. So nobody's buying the gym. Who's taking it over? Well, nobody's going to come in and buy your gym unless they've got certain things lined up. So generally speaking, most gym owners are going to either hand it off or sell it to one of their blue belts that turn black belts, or their law member students. Got a news flash for you guys. Most combat sports gym owners and participants don't know dick about business, right? So now you're going to watch what you built for however many years be turned away to somebody who, may not do it the way you did it, may not do it as good. You have to get off of that practitioner's mindset when you're in the gym and you think of like a business owner and an entrepreneur. So for me, I knew personal training wise, I was always chasing the hour and I was always working from 4 to 8. So I didn't have dinner time with my family. I didn't have these things that, most people, can take advantage of. And I knew that it was never going to be a sustainable thing where I could just collect checks unless I thought like a business owner. So now for me, my exit strategy was to, create other models throughout the Pure Fitness franchise. We'll be associated with Pure. We're associated with Pure. We're powered by SBY, and we're taking gyms that, could use a machine behind them like that and put our systems and our processes and our marketing and our teams and all the things that we can. They can keep their identity. They can keep their name. They can keep all their whys because everybody has a different why. But you're going to come in here and not only are you going to be powered by SBY, but you're going to be associated with Pure Fitness, which again, that marketing and exposure is just insane alone. But then we're putting, so to speak, octane in your gas tank. And now what you're doing is you're building different stars throughout the Pure Fitness franchise, and you're adding, different SBY MMA affiliates, so to speak. And now you're able to sit here and have a legitimate business and a legitimate business model so that down the road, if there was maybe potential, profit sharing opportunities for some of these gym owners or potential whatever, now what's going on is then we can talk about, potentially selling private equity, maybe selling some of that stuff, whatever that looks like, what I mean? Because there's a lot, everybody talks about in business, they want to exit, I want to exit. And I thought that's what I wanted to do. But I noticed when you're focusing in business on the exit, sometimes you sacrifice the quality and the brand and the culture and all the great things that make that business. There's other ways of exiting your business without having to just, so to speak, sell it, right? Yeah. And also relinquish so much power to somebody that,
which that's hard to do.
100%.
It's hard to trust somebody else with your baby and with your money and everything.
And the hardest thing for entrepreneurs is understanding that you got to rely on your systems and processes. You have to have standard operating procedures around everything that you do. And that way it takes the personal and the emotional attachment out of that situation, and you're just following a process. You got to have core values, right? So your gym or your business has to have core values that are written and posted on the wall. We have them here. We have them at the gym. You have to have them posted on the wall, and people need to understand that. And you need to impose those core values on your culture, on your, not just your employees, especially your employees, but also the members, also the affiliates to the members. And now you're creating a culture, you're creating a brand, you're creating recognition. And then what you're doing is you're following systems so that people, it's very easy to police, right? Yeah. Look, if you're not following the systems or you're violating the core values, then guess what? Probably time we have a conversation.
Well, I think the best part about SOPs are that you can train anybody to follow that SOP.
Correct.
So now what happens is if Susie isn't, and Susie gets chance after chance after chance, and it's like, okay, now like Susie could be gone and somebody else can fill that, and hey, this is what you have to do. It's written down. It's clear and simple. I would say that's probably one of the number one things businesses struggle with.
Absolutely.
Going from like actually being a business and a model, and how do I walk away? How do I release the reins? Is with SOPs.
And that's the hardest thing most business owners struggle with. And I can tell you what, it's a living organism. So it's the hardest thing I struggle with. It's difficult, but what it is it's something that's forever lasting. And once you find out that you can hire somebody to do your front desk, you can hire a manager to take tasks off your plate. You can put in SOPs and follow those SOPs, and you can always perfect them and work on them. You realize how much fear and limited beliefs you had behind owning and operating your business. And now you can start stepping away and getting that white space that you need so you can start really generating income for your business. And just like your example of Susie not fitting in on that one particular role, right? Well, the beauty of SOPs is maybe we don't even get rid of Susie. Maybe we find out Susie just sucked at that one role, but she's really good at this other one. Let's stick her in here because she is a good fit. We do like her. She's really well in whatever. Now she can go to another position with another set of SOPs, learn that, and you could potentially turn a 6, where Susie was a 6, into a 7, 8, 9, or 10,
absolutely.
Where she potentially can grow.
Yeah. So what do you, talking about busyness and talking about, starting to pay people to fill your time slots that you were doing, front desk, things like that. How are you managing that like work-life balance that everybody talks about between family, kids school projects, doing this, doing that, while running a business, while being involved in Maryland, Delaware group and all that stuff?
Well, there's no such thing as work-life balance. So you have to relinquish that thought process in itself, because if you don't, you're going to constantly feel like you're in a deficit, because you'll never spend as much time with your family that you do with your colleagues or you do in your business. So get rid of that mindset, right?
That's a great answer.
It really is. I believe in harmony, right? I harmonize my time, you know what I mean, where, you know, I'm harmony with the family. So in other words, what happens is and I learned all this through mistakes, right? You know, I still put a lot of hours in, but the first thing I sat back and said is here are my non-negotiables, right? I'm not going to work on this day. I'm not going to work on this time, right? For instance, Fridays are usually my shorter days now, right? And believe it or not, Mondays are my late days that I go in, because what I found was, for me, that when I try to get to work on time and rush out the door on a Monday morning and do all these things that everybody does and follow the hustle bustle, for me, and now I also work till 8, 9 o'clock at night, that what that does is that sets a horrible tone for the entire day for me, right?
Or week.
And week, yes. I was getting 100%. And so my non-negotiables, I'm going to start my Monday off like the way I need to start my life off, right? And I've got a routine. Same way with Fridays. Fridays, I get to pick my son up, right? So I don't ever get to pick my son up from work, okay? From school, excuse me. So now I get to pick my son up on Fridays, and we have the whole afternoon when my wife works to sit here and do whatever, and then she gets off and we do more stuff. That's something that I've gained a value, right? So what I've done is after I grinded and got to that point, I put a deadline on it. I said, look, at this point in time, I will commit to saying this is it. I'm not going to do it, regardless if I'm ready or not. Because if you say you're going to do it, you don't set a deadline, it'll never get done. And if you really stay true to your deadline and true to your word, you'll figure it out sooner, right? So that's my non-negotiables in the beginning. Then on top of that, what I do is now it's about communication, and it's about mapping out things. One of the biggest mistakes I think that entrepreneurs make is they don't utilize their calendar and their phone.
I think that's huge.
Like, bro, just put your stuff in your phone. So these guys will sit here and they'll have all this stuff in their head. They'll have all these things.
It's funny you said that. I got to cut you off just for a second,
yeah.
Because I remember one of the first, I think, Champ Talks I watched, and this was like years ago when you and Chet just started
rambling.
And
Eric might even have been on those shows.
Yeah, you said, I don't even know, this is like a $1,100 item, and we're not even utilizing it to its full potential. And
yeah, dude.
And literally, but that switched in my head. I'm like, man, that's so right? Like just talking about a calendar and simple things.
Yeah. Yeah, we literally use our phones to scroll internets and to text and Snapchat and take videos. Like,
yeah.
And then you add AI element to what your phone can do for you now. Like, you know what I mean? That's the beauty of my guy Owen. You know, Owen didn't have the luxuries of having cell phones through the course of his journey. So now he's like kind of jumped right into having this awesome phone. And I'm like, dude, play with it. Here's what you could do. Do everything that you don't know what to do. Just do everything, right? So what he's doing is he's now teaching me how to utilize AI, because I'm so used to doing the same thing over and over again. And now, you know, you have a fresh guy looking at it from fresh eyes, and it grows.
Well, and even back to like the balance and all that, and the harmony, you know, our phones can also be destructive.
100%.
You know, like, and I do think that there's times where, like, when you're with your family, like for you, like, hey, Friday, when I pick my son up, I'm going to be with him. Like, I'm not going to be on my phone, snap booking and all that. That's the old man in me.
Yeah. I like it.
But you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not going to be doing that. I'm going to be intentional about my time with him, with my wife, and all that. So I think that's huge.
No, I agree. And that's a part of your non-negotiables. So again, you know, going back to your question, you know, now I harmonize my time. So communication is effective. You know, I'll sit down with my wife, I'll sit down with my family, and I'll say, hey, look, you know, we had a great summer. It was cool, right? But we worked and earned that, you know what I mean, to be able to have that time off and those days off. Now we're going to lock in the busiest time for the gym season, which is in our demographic and area from, you know, September all the way up to May, June. But we're going to be able to do the things that we want to do. Also, you know, we're going to take this holiday, and we're going to, you know, have a 4-day weekend for Thanksgiving. So we might go to Pittsburgh and visit and get a little mini vacation out of it. We're going to do this holiday. We're going to do this trip here. We're going to, you know, we strategize the times that we take off for our long weekends, potential vacations, or just holidays. And we make sure that we harmonize it. So look, I know I might be working, you know, 60, 70, maybe even 80 hours a week for the next month, but next month we've got a couple of days off.
Yeah, but you'll get more out of that time. Like, you'll get more out of intentional time.
Yep.
That if you got off every day at 2:00 and you're home on your phone and not actually spending time with your family. Like, I'm a firm believer, like, even time block and scheduling like family time. And I know that sounds so weird to people that like don't understand it, but it's like, no, like if I schedule this time, like I'm going to be here, I'm going to be present. And we have a crazy schedule too. So I 100% like understand all that.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds weird when you do it, you know, when people think about time blocking and scheduling, here's what, it doesn't sound weird. Here's what it sounds like. It sounds restrictive.
Yeah.
And people think that
accountability.
Yeah. People think that like here's how I think, excuse me. I do well in the chaos. I do real well in the chaos. I didn't learn structure until I met my wife, and she's a type A personality, like this and a third. What we do is people like us, me, I look at that as conformity, and I look at that as being, you know, restrictive on what I want to do in my life and what I want to do in my day. I want the freedom to go out here, and they don't realize that more structure is more freedom, right? So yeah, we might have to time block our family time, right? But that time block for my family time is strictly dedicated. You know, you don't call a doctor up and say, "Hey doc, I got a headache. I need to see you right now. You know, can you help me?" He's like, "No." And my friend, he's going, we'll see you at Tuesday at 2:00. Yeah. And then at Tuesday at 2:00, you have my undivided attention, and you have my full, you know, you have me 100%. So time blocking all of those things and being more scheduled is important, especially considering the average human is spending 7 hours a day, 5 hours a day on social media, and the average business owner gets lost in it. You know, it's real easy to get lost in business and get lost in your, you know, the things you do. So if I don't have a governor on me or any kind of restricting thing to say, no, you're going to go do this with your family. You're going to go do this here. You're going to take some you time. You're going to work out. You're going to do all these things you need to do. It'll never get done.
Yeah. And I think even along with like scheduling the family time, also scheduling like your social media time.
Yep.
You know, like it's okay to schedule 30 minutes where, hey, I'm just going to scroll for 30 minutes and watch whatever videos, but then like when that's done, you're done with it and put it away.
And you can do that right on your phone nowadays. You can put that right on your phone where it'll stop. And you know, that's a whole other, you know, podcast in itself.
But that could be talked for a while.
Well, you know, I am a firm believer that if you are in a business, you need to become a marketer. You know, you need to learn how to become a marketer.
Yeah, I mean, you've helped me with a lot of marketing stuff.
I love what you're doing too. It's so awesome.
We don't have to go crazy into that.
Yeah,
because I know it'll take. I mean, that could be a 3-hour conversation. But if you just want to touch a little bit on maybe like where you started from like just turning on social media and figuring it out to like some of the marketing things you're doing now, and it doesn't have to be long, but just maybe a minute or two of what that.
Yeah, I'll make it real simple, right? First of all, you have to take your emotional attachment away from social media. So it still mind boggles me today that people allow a video to get them worked up or a troll to get them worked up. We know for a fact, it's proven that there is hired and paid bots, hired and paid people to sit here and cause an emotional reaction to social media. We know for a fact that videos are two-dimensional, right? Social media is two-dimensional. It takes out the way that you view humans. It takes out the context of what's going on. Whatever you take and put on social media, it is designed, whether it's by proxy or purposely and intentionally, to sit here and be exactly what you want it to be. Right? Whether you want it to be angry or mad. So take that away from it. Take your angry or mad, angry, happy, sad, whatever. Take the emotional attachment and the fear away from social media. So many people have fear associated to seeing themselves on video, marketing their business, talking about what they do, talking about their wins, because whatever conditioning is made, people believe that, oh my gosh, you're arrogant because you talk about your business. Oh, people might not like it. I don't want to be annoying. You have to get rid of all those belief structures when you're talking about social media and you're living in your belief structure. When I first started, I just threw stuff on there that I liked, that I thought was inspirational. I put a lot of gym stuff on there. I put a lot of like shared motivational stuff on there. I really didn't get on there and talk much. I put a lot of stuff with the gym and what they're doing. I might have got on there in my mouth and said, hey, you know, this is what we're doing. I was a little bit motivational. I might have saw like a group of hippies taking homemade musicians doing a cover song, and I thought that was cool because it was artistic. And then as I grew more and got in more rooms and more businesses, I understood how to build your brand. See, marketing builds you, and Branden Brittingham said this, marketing gets you money, branding builds you wealth, right? So when you're personal branding, what you're doing is you're basically you're going all in on what you want your personal brand to look like. And I think one of the biggest things that we're missing out on on social media and in society alone is authenticity, right? Be who you are. You're going to make people mad no matter who you are.
Yeah,
and those same people you're making mad are sitting on a nice luxury couch doing nothing but looking at social media, spewing out their opinion and thinking that anybody cares, right? So you get rid of all that stuff and you get consistent. You have to be very consistent on social media. You have to be just a savage and diligent on how much content what you put out. And I think everybody kind of wants to put all this like super high-end curated content, and it's got to be like this fancy stuff. Like, we're doing this podcast on an iPhone right now, right? Like, and I'm sure people didn't even know that until I said so, but guess what? This is going to be a great podcast for somebody out here, if it's one person, to gain knowledge, to gain inspiration, to gain golden gems, to help them grow and become a better whatever, it is a big.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because I think about how many bad YouTube videos I've watched to learn something.
Yeah.
Even if it's like trying to fix something or just whatever, and it's like, man, this is the worst, like, video, sound, everything, but I need the quality of the content,
Sure.
the information,
the value. And then you look at the views, and it's got like 6 million views.
Yeah.
Some of the most viewed videos online are how to replace a toilet. You know what I mean? Like, you're overthinking it. You're trying to, and that's another thing, and I don't want to go too deep on this, but everybody attributes their social media presence to the 10 influencers that are the most popular and the most branded, right? Like, that's not the bulk of people. Same with the podcast, right? Everybody thinks that they have to have the next Joe Rogan podcast. Some of the most powerful and impactful and profitable podcasts are the ones that people talk about. Branden Brittingham is a prime example. I keep bringing him up. Branden Brittingham's got the number 1, number 2, number 3 podcast in the country for investing. The dude did it right in his office, and he literally did it to have more content, and it just blew up because he's an expert in his craft. He was diligent about his social media and posting, and the brand and network and people that he leveraged for that gained him popularity.
Yeah.
And now he's,
but the information's good too.
100%.
Yeah. And that's
100%.
That's the big thing, is that you can learn, and education's there.
Nothing but value.
Yeah, for sure. So while we're closing up, I just have like 2 questions for you. Number 1 is, if you had to start all over and you were given $1,000 to invest, knowing what you know now, what would you invest that in?
Bitcoin. That's an easy one. Jeez, I remember when Bitcoin was like $1 a coin. Yeah. $1,000. Well, here's what I would do. Okay. I would adopt the money principles sooner than later. And the money principle, the rules of money to me are: you live off 70% of your income, you invest 20%, and you give charity to 10%. And the 10% to charity, obviously, biblical practices, any other place, that comes back to you in the universe. But that's not why you want to give it. You want to give that 10% for that to help people, but also for psychological rewiring to say, no matter what I do in life, I can live without 10% of my income. I can figure it out, right? So the charity and the helping is one thing, but also it's a subconscious thing. We're like, hey, I'm gonna make this 90%. The 20% you want to invest, and I think that the biggest thing that people make a big mistake on is they want to wait and time the market, and they want to invest in the right thing. And what happens is, and I made this mistake myself, you never get in the game. And then when you never get in the game, you just never get in the game. It's just like what it is. The only way you're going to learn is by doing it, right? So just like business, like anything else, just like jiu-jitsu, you get in the game, you start investing, and you figure it out, right? But you always invest 20% of your money, and then you live off the 70%, right? And what happens is all of those things are really tight, right? And then you can even take it an even step farther. I read this great book, Profit First, right, by Michael Mikowiecki. I forgive me for fumbling his name, but what happens is then you start breaking it down to percentages, right? So you're living off 70%, but now we're going to take that 70% and we're going to break off the percentage for our mortgage or our rent, percentage for our food, percentage for emergency fund, percentage for utilities. And then what happens is you revisit, and the first thing you do is you pay yourself first. You pay yourself first a percentage. I started paying myself first 1% of my money. Just 1%. You want to set the bar low, get used to doing this, and then as you grow, you can add percentages. Building principles. And what happens is when you do that, Ben, then what happens is as your network gets, increases, and as you understand how to respect money and so forth, now you can start coming back quarterly or every 6 months, and you can start looking at your numbers and say, well, look, I don't need to have this percentage for this and that percentage for that. I can start allocating different funds and start mixing over, as well as that 70% that you're living off of tends to shrink. You know what I mean? So that gives you the ability to take the other 10 or 15% and put it in the investments. And the investment side is, I think that you should diversify your portfolio. I'm not a money expert, but what I know is I know that real estate obviously is something that, most people invest in. Your return on real estate isn't as high as on stocks, historically speaking. But the cool thing about what you can do with real estate is real estate always goes up. It never goes down. Rent, mortgage always goes up, never goes down, and you can get more creative on how you leverage the loans and leverage the deals with that. Plus, you have a tangible thing you can peel off. And then the other side of it is, stocks. I think stocks are a way to get in the game. I think the S&P 500 is somewhere where to go where you don't know nothing and just kind of start. I'm not a big fan of day trading personally, and obviously, I think crypto has made a real good, strong sense, and I think that the thing about crypto. It could be made by the CIA. It could be somebody who's going to pull the rug on everybody. But at the end of the day, I've made good money off crypto, and you know what I mean. I just think that it's a really fascinating way to put your money in where you don't have to trust somebody else or the times with your money. It goes up, it goes down, but as we've seen, just like everything else, stocks, real estate, it's constantly climbing the ladder.
Awesome. Just last question while we're closing. What legacy are you trying to leave?
Oh, okay. So I want to have a picture of me in my kids' house.
That's awesome.
That's what I want.
That's a great answer.
Yeah. You don't see that anymore. You used to see that back in the day where you used to see a family, picture of great-great-grandfather.
I got my grandparents, and
I think that, and why that's important to me is, there's always one person in any of these successful families that changed the trajectory of the way their family, has lived. When you look at any big name that has become uber successful, there was always that one person that thought differently and went differently than everybody else in the family. And what that did was that family member did something in all positive, most cases, that changed the way that family was viewed and that family was treated and that family's options were, right? And I'm not talking about saving people, because I don't believe in saving people, right? I think there's only one that saves people. I don't think it's me or you. So I think that when you give your family an option and options, and you teach them on how to do things and teach them to open up their minds and open up things, I think what happens is now you create a legacy. And I want to be, and I'm going to be that person that my family, my kids are going to say, great grandfather, Branden was the one, he had all these great stories, and I'm going to I'm leaving a digital blueprint so that my kids and my kids' kids and my kids' kids can go back and look at my podcast, go back and look at my content, go back, read my stuff, and see all of the things that I'm leaving for them, so that they have an idea how to not only do it, but do it better than me, because obviously we want our offspring to be way better than us. That doesn't mean that anybody has to do something and anybody doesn't have to do nothing, but I think the ultimate legacy is that your offspring's knows that you were such a big deal that they have a picture of you in their house. That tells me that I did it right. You know what I mean? And I lived the right way. I showed them, how important that being a good man is, being a family person is, trusting in God or whoever you believe in or whatever it is that you follow. I believe that all of that sets a precedence. And to me, money's great, success is great, but I just want, I want my kids to know that, and my family to know that, man, everything I've ever done has been about them, and I love them so much. And, yes, I had to sacrifice a lot of time, and I made a ton of mistakes along the way, but it was ultimately for the greater good. And then I just want to hang out with them. So when I get older, I just want to hang out with them. I just want to be the pop-up and be the dad that I can just go out there and just hang out, and I don't care about whatever's going on. We've already done what we had to do.
I love that. Awesome. Where can everybody find you? Everywhere. Just type in Branden Hudson.
Well, it's Branden with an E, D-E-N. You know what I mean? My mom, she didn't know how to spell my name when she was like going in the 18th hour of pregnancy. I'm SBY MMA and Fitness on Instagram. I do got a personal Instagram I'm about to fire up, but right now you can go to @SBY MMA and Fitness. I'm on Facebook. That's my main source of, trapping. That's Branden Hudson. You can go to my YouTube channel. It's Champ Talk with Branden Hudson. I ask you like and subscribe to all platforms. We're on Spotify and Apple Music. A DM, you know what I mean, email, whatever, man. I'm here. The other thing I want to say before this is over, dude, like, I really appreciate being on here, and I just want to give you your flowers, dude. You do a lot of things behind the scenes that people don't recognize. Obviously people know you from Short Home Constructions. They know you from being the mayor of Del Mar, but I know you personally, and I think that what you're doing and the example that you set as a family man, as a politician, as a worker, salesperson, business owner, all the above, I think is a great example for young men and women to aspire to be like. And I just, I'm very proud to be your friend, and I want to give you your flowers while you're alive. And I think it's very important that people recognize that, because you make a lot of tough decisions, and you don't always make the decision that makes everybody feel good. And for you to sit here and continue to stand on that and stand with your values and principles and your faith and put that first, man, I think that's a big deal. So I just want to acknowledge that and thank you.
I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
If you found value in this episode, be sure to like, and if you found something that you want to reach out to Branden, comment. I can put his stuff in all the descriptions, but I'm telling you, go check out Champ Talk. He has some great episodes with a bunch of different business owners, leaders in the community. And I mean, just some of the conversations just absolutely are hilarious, and you just get going. He's unhinged, and I love it. It's the best thing.
I've been trying to get canceled for 2 years. It just doesn't work. So, and also, like I do speaking too. So, if somebody's out there and wants me to come speak to their organization or to their company, I'd love to do that. So,
yeah, absolutely. And I want to thank our sponsor, Shore Home Construction. If you don't know, Shore Home Construction is the premier construction company on the Eastern Shore. Why do I know? Because I am Shore Home Construction. No, Shore Home does a lot of great things, and I want to give them a shout out on this episode. But thanks for watching. Like I said, comment, like, thumbs up, follow. We appreciate you. Hope to see you on the next one.
Thank you, Ben.